Hello again, it's Trix at the Foxerie. This is episode 7, and we're going to talk a little bit more about ego dynamics today, focusing on projection. Projection being that mechanic that we hear about sometimes in psychology where you imagine or imbue things on other people that may not necessarily be the case. That can include objects. You might imbue stuff onto objects. You might project onto groups of people, attributes that don't exist. You might even project onto yourself. In fact, I'm going to go out and say you're definitely projecting onto yourself. You can't avoid it. So there's a lot of things that projection covers, and we're going to start nice and easy, nice and simple with a basic model of projection and build onto it as we go along. The other thing to say is when it comes to social confidence, a lack of social confidence definitely, as far as I'm concerned, implies that you're projecting something onto the people around you that they don't deserve, or projecting something onto yourself. And social confidence, on the other hand, is you're not projecting particularly, or in fact you might be projecting something quite positive. So we're going to start with, you guessed it, the ubiquitous model of the circle. So let's start with the circle. Let's see how we go with today's circle. It's going to come around, not looking too potato-like. Is it going to join? Yes, one of my better circles. So this circle, as you know from before, is going to represent it world. So we'll just put it there. And today we're going to talk about something a little bit different in it world. In the past, I've suggested that the it world is full of this energy, which we're calling life energy. The energetic model, not very popular among a lot of psychologists, but I still think it has a lot of merit because it helps you conceptualize processes. So we're going to fill this circle with energy. All this yellow fizzing energy is going to be called, we're going to give it a really sexy name. This is mana. So the it world is full of mana. And to imagine mana is imagining it's like this bright sun that's full of energy, like a nuclear reactor, if you like. It's just bursting with energy. And this is when you see little kids running around all day, tons of energy. They're just bursting with mana, basically. Okay, so coming back to the ego itself, we know also from previous videos that the ego, as it develops or matures, as a combination of a bit of superego influence, comes out or is able to differentiate itself and become its own person, me. There we are, there's me. And that's obviously, I'll write it there just so we remind ourselves. There's the ego, me. I'm not the it, and I'm not anything else. I'm me, a separate individual. However, there are times during the day when you least expect it that you can lose yourself, meaning all that hard work it took to build you, can become undone very quickly. And we're going to talk about a very simple example to demonstrate what I mean by this. How can you lose yourself, you might be wondering. So here we go, another hyper-realistic diagram. It's my artistic skills being upsold there. And this is a scary dog. There it is, little dog body behind it. There's the lower jaws, scary teeth, front legs, back legs, little bushy tail. Okay, here's the dog growling at the ego. So the ego now is perceiving some kind of threat. Oh my gosh, I'm being threatened. Now, we know from our actual experience of being threatened, some of us listening to this video may be afraid of dogs or have been attacked by dogs. It's something that happens automatically inside you when you're threatened. It's like you're overcome by something. We've got a little notice there from some email dropping in. When you're threatened, the body takes over and you don't have to really do much. But let's talk about this psychologically. What does it mean psychologically? It means that all this it energy comes bursting up like this. Comes flooding out of it world, racing up towards you like this. And it floods you. I'm flooded with it energy like this. what does that mean psychologically? Really, it means when you're threatened, when something unexpected happens, the boundary that separates you from it world is pretty much obliterated. So this wonderful sort of boundary thing that you spent many years trying to sort of create, I'm just going to obliterate it here, shatters in that instant when the dog threatens and all this it energy comes flooding up. Remember what the it does? It takes care of our basic life tasks. And if I just quickly remind you, why not? It's things like, here we go. We've got sex, always sex, food. They're kind of related in a way, sex and food. Power, status, what else? Aggression, dominance, and so on and so on. These things are basically it functions or id functions. And in this particular instance, we've got an aggressive threat to our, self-esteem, or actually physical esteem, really, in this case. So let's try and conceptualize this in a bit more psychological terms. Let's get my eraser out. And we're just going to get rid of that. If you're losing control of yourself, you're not yourself anymore. That's a really important point. And psychologically, what it means, oops, that's not the color I want. I want black. Here we go. The ego in that moment regresses. It falls back down into it world. And there, as I showed you with the color yellow, and it was called yellow. Okay. You get flooded with your it energy again. So this is called a regression. There we go. I was a nice whole ego, just going about my business, and suddenly a dog came to attack me and I regressed and I went back into it world. I got flooded with it energy and I became aggressive over here. I became filled with hate or rage or whatever, or even fear, and I ran away. I went that way. The dog's over here. I went that way. Okay, so there's a basic model for what I call regression, and we'll talk about more about regression. This video is not really on regression particularly. Okay, so let's get rid of the dog. Dog goes away. The owner comes out of the house and says, "Bad Timmy," the dog, and threat's gone. No need to regress anymore. Let's get rid of that. Put the pen back. And put it world back intact, and then the ego comes back. Boom! It goes back to where it was before. It progresses, we could say, or goes back to its normal status. And there it is, ego, when the threat is gone. So any minute of the day, as you can see, there's always a threat or concern that you could lose control of yourself if something happens, and you can regress back into it world, become flooded with mana, which is the it energy, and then any one of these can start to take over. You can become aggressive, you can become power hungry, you can be status seeking, you can start binging on food or binging on sex if you like, or becoming sexually inappropriate with your colleagues if you're at work, and so on if you regress into the it. So what do we do about this? We can't go around necessarily losing ourselves every time there's some little trigger in the world. So this is where projection starts to come into play. I'll leave that on the page there. The ego has a very clever trick to help it better manage this enormous energy. Now this is enormous. This is like a nuclear reactor, or you could say this is like having the sun inside of you. Okay, so let's look at a little trick the ego does in childhood. Let's go back to get our parent out. We're always getting our parents out. No, I want black. I don't want that color. There we go. Here's mum or dad or parent figure, or someone strong, a strong person. There they are, looking appropriately stern. Okay, now the ego is going to allow the adult figure, you can say adult, you could say authority if you like, to do something very clever here. The ego is going to allow the adult, and this is a psychological jargon coming at you, to carry aggression. for it. So what does that mean? It means that the ego is going to project, and that's what color should we use for that? Let's use yellow. This is psychological. Projecting some of the mana, some of the it energy into, it's kind of heading this way, into the adult. And they are now infused with some of the it energy. Remember, this is psychological. This is just psychological. This is not a weird skin disease, by the way. It's it energy. Okay, now what does this mean? Let's bring back the dog. Dog comes running out. I shouldn't have got rid of it now. I think I've got to redraw it. There's the dog. There's its jaws. There's its ears. There's its body. Once again, you're welcome for the hyperrealism. Benefiting from my incredible skills. Teeth, little dog nose. And the dog is threatening again. Let's go growling. Grr. There's the sound of a growl. Now, rather than regressing as we used to in the face of a threat, the ego now is allowed to stay completely intact as long as the adult is able to step in and go, no. That's a very happy looking adult. I'll try and make him look a bit more severe. No, we won't bother. Okay. The adult steps in. The ego is projecting. Now, when I say projecting, try and get this in your minds as I talk about it. Project some kind of authority into the adult. The adult is now carrying, symbolically, the authority that the ego cannot muster itself. However, there's an agreement here. The adult has to actually step in and do stuff as well. If the adult or parent does step in and protect the ego does not have to regress. It can stay whole and complete. It can stay its own person, if that makes sense. So projection is a bargain. I will project onto you authority, let's say, in this case. Could be something else. However, you, parent, mum, dad, adult person, policeman, government, law, society, must do this for me. Step in and do what I cannot. And if they do it successfully, so the adult steps in here, says to the dog, hey, dog, back away. Get away from this ego. Dog runs away. The ego maintains this projection of power. So the adult, in the ego's eyes at least, is infused with magical power projected onto them, of authority, of strength, of whatever. Yeah, you get it. I think you get it. Do you see? So the adult now is carrying a projection of the ego as an authority, as someone strong. However, let's say the ego, let's go back a few steps. Let's get rid of this bit here. Okay, let's say it's a parent figure. Ego is projecting on authority like this. It's like a transfer of energy, taking some of my it energy and putting it into you, making a bargain, so to speak, unconsciously. Here comes the dog again. Geez, I really got to stop getting rid of this dog. I need to learn to draw dogs faster. Okay, dog, mouth, bottom jaw, teeth, ear, body, legs, tail. Dog's deteriorating as I go forward. Here's the growl, here's the threat, right? Grrr, scary dog, very scary. The adult, who is ostensibly the authority figure, fails to step in, fails to do their job as an adult. What happens? The ego feels threatened. Oh my God, I'm going to die, kind of thing, and withdraws the projection. Do you see? You can't be trusted anymore, adult figure who I projected onto authority and power. I'm withdrawing I'm going to shrink my brush a little bit. I'm withdrawing all the mana I projected onto you. You're nobody. You're nothing. You're not even worth the paper you're written on in this case. And of course, we know what's going to happen next because we're all becoming better psychologists now. The ego regresses and it shoots back down into here. It regresses back. Ego regression. Do you see? So if someone or something is not able to carry your projection for you, basically fails you in simple terms, you will regress, meaning you'll submerge back into it world. And what do you do then? I don't know, you become aggressive maybe. Like coming back over here, if you're submerged in it world, you might become aggressive. You might become power hungry, you might become status obsessed, and so on and so on. And of course, if the dog comes at you, you have no choice but probably to run away, run, or fight like this. But that's a lot of pressure for a little developing ego to bear. And we could call that a trauma. And there's an introduction to trauma as well. Trauma is not the incident of the animal attacking you and you running away. Trauma is the failed projection here. You projected onto someone, they let you down, and all that mana came back to you and caused you to regress back into it world. There's your trauma model. There's your projection model. And there's another dynamic we're going to explore, regression when someone lets you down. All right, that video went on for a wee while. Please feel free to like and subscribe. Comments are very welcome. Stay tuned. We're going to cover more ground here as we go along. Bye for now.